Inside every single one of us, there's this massive hidden organ. And no, I'm not talking about your brain or your heart or your lungs, but it is absolutely central to our survival. And when it gets attacked by a condition called sepsis, well, this silent guardian can become our absolute greatest threat. So, what is this mysterious and powerful system? Let's dive in and find out.
So, just how massive are we talking? Well, get this. If you could somehow take this organ and spread it out completely flat, it would cover an area the size of 4 tennis courts. It's incredible, right? This enormous surface area belongs to something called the endothelium. It's the single layer of cells that lines every single one of our blood vessels.
Now, the endothelium is so much more than just a passive lining for our body's plumbing. You can think of it as a smart, living, breathing organ that acts as the ultimate gatekeeper, controlling everything that happens at that crucial border between our blood and our body's tissues.
To really understand what goes wrong in sepsis, we first have to appreciate everything the endothelium does right when we're healthy. So let's take a look at its day-to-day jobs.
Okay, so under normal healthy conditions, the endothelium is kind of like the perfect non-stick coating for the 60,000 miles of blood vessels we have. It keeps blood flowing just right, helps manage our blood pressure, and crucially, it stops dangerous clots from forming where they shouldn't. It actively repels blood cells so they don't stick to the walls. It just keeps everything in perfect balance, a state we call homeostasis. But what happens when the body is hit with a really severe infection? This is where the villain of our story, sepsis, makes its entrance. Now, here is a super important point to get. Sepsis isn't the infection itself. It's the body's extreme, out-of-control, dysregulated response to that infection. It's basically a case of friendly fire, where our own immune system's attempt to fight off the bad guys ends up causing massive damage to our own organs. And guess what the very first target of this friendly fire is? You got it, the endothelium. It gets absolutely hammered by what scientists call a cytokine storm. This is just an overwhelming flood of inflammatory signals that are supposed to help, but in sepsis, they become a destructive tsunami.
This cytokine storm triggers a complete and utter catastrophe. The endothelium, our trusted guardian, does a complete 180 and basically becomes a traitor.
Okay, now this diagram might look a little complicated at first glance, but it tells the entire story of the breakdown. It's the whole chain reaction of how our guardian turns against us. Don't worry, we're going to walk through it together piece by piece. It all kicks off right here, in the top left. The attack gets started by 2 main things: bits and pieces from the invading bacteria, like a toxin called LPS, and that crazy cytokine storm from our own immune system. These signals just bombard the endothelial cells and flip a switch, turning them on in the worst way possible. And the first change is just, whoa. You see here where it says pro-adhesive and pro-aggregant, that perfect non-stick Teflon coating we were talking about? It instantly turns into something more like flypaper. Seriously, the endothelium starts grabbing onto platelets and white blood cells that are just trying to pass by, setting the stage for thousands of tiny, dangerous blood clots. Then the second failure hits, right here. Loss of barrier function. The super tight seals that hold the endothelial cells together just break apart. This means the blood vessel walls, which are supposed to be secure pipes, suddenly become leaky. Fluid just starts pouring out of the bloodstream into the body's tissues, which is what causes all that massive swelling. And the final nail in the coffin is down here at the bottom. The whole system that controls the tightness of our blood vessels goes completely haywire. A specific enzyme just floods the system with nitric oxide, causing what's called hyporeactivity and vasodilation. To put it simply, the blood vessels lose all their tension and relax uncontrollably. They just become wide and floppy.
So we've seen this microscopic chaos unfold. Let's now zoom out and see how this all adds up to a system-wide failure for the patient. So what we have is a total transformation. The guardian goes from being smooth and repellent to being sticky and causing clots, from being contained and secure to being leaky and swollen, and from having a balanced, controlled tone to being just dangerously floppy and relaxed. This 3-part failure is really the heart of the whole crisis.
So what does this actually mean for a person? Well, that uncontrolled relaxation of the blood vessels leads to a massive, catastrophic drop in blood pressure. That's septic shock. The stickiness causes tons of tiny clots all over the body that choke off blood flow to vital organs, a condition called disseminated intravascular coagulation, or DIC.
And all of this leads to tissue hypoxia, not enough oxygen, and, tragically, the shutdown of one organ after another.
I know, this all sounds incredibly grim, but understanding this process in such detail actually gives us a really clear target. It makes you wonder, right? How can we jump in and help this guardian get back to its protective job?
And that question brings us to the very front line of sepsis research, where the endothelium is no longer just seen as a victim, but as a place where we could actually intervene.
And here's why this is so unbelievably critical. Studies have shown that how badly the endothelium is damaged, how sick this one little layer of cells is an independent predictor of whether a patient will survive. Its health is directly, and I mean directly, tied to the outcome. You know, for a long time, treatments for sepsis have really been supportive. We pump in fluids to make up for the leaks, and we give drugs called vasopressors to try and squeeze those floppy blood vessels shut. But those treatments are just managing the symptoms. They don't do much to actually heal the endothelium itself. The future, the real hope, is shifting towards drugs that directly target and restore the health of the endothelium.
So we end on this thought. The endothelium isn't just some innocent bystander in sepsis. It's a central character that holds a key to the entire crisis. And if its failure is what leads to organ damage and death, could restoring its function, turning that traitor back into a guardian, be the ultimate key to survival?